Hi, so today I will be reading Beowulf. I will be reading the sort of older translation, so to speak. But if you did want a more modern English translation, I highly recommend this one by Seamus Heaney. So you could always sort of follow along with this book while I read the sort of old English translation. Each page is also accompanied by an artifact. So if you love history like I do, then it's a pretty sweet book. But unfortunately, we are reading, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we are going to be reading the older translation. We're going to be starting with Part 1, The Life and Death of Skilid. Lo, the spear Dane's glory through splendid achievements, the folk king's former fame we have heard of, how princes displayed then their prowess in battle, oft skyled the Scyldling from scathers in numbers, from many a people their mead benches tore. Since first he found him friendless and wretched, the earl had terror, comfort he got for it, waxed neath the welkin, world honour gained, till all his neighbours o'er sea were compelled to bow to his bidding, and bring him their tribute, an excellent atheling. After was born him a son and heir, young in his dwelling, whom God Father sent to solace the people. He had marked the misery malice had caused them, that reaved their rulers as they wretched had erstwhile, long been afflicted. The Lord, in requital, wielder of glory, with world honour blessed him. Famed was Beowulf, far spread the glory of Skild's great son in the lands of the Danemen. So the carle that is young, by kindness rendered, the friends of his father, with fees in abundance, must be able to earn that when age approacheth, eager companions aid him reluctantly. When war assaults have when war assaults him, serve him as liegeman. By praiseworthy actions must honour be got 'mong all the races. At the hour that was fated, Scyld then departed to the All-Father's keeping, warlike to wend him. Away then they bear him, to the flood of the current, his fond loving comrades, as himself he had bidden, while the friend of the Skydings word sway wielded, and the well-loved land prince long did rule them. The ring-stemmed vessel, bark of the atheling, lay there at anchor, icy in glimmer, and eager for sailing. The beloved leader laid they down there, giver of rings, on the breast of the vessel, the famed of the mainmast. As many of jewels, of fretted embossings, from far lands brought over, was placed near at hand then. And heard I not ever that a folk ever furnished a bloat more superbly with weapons of warfare, weeds for the battle, bills and burnies. On his bosom sparkled many a jewel that with him must travel, on the flush of the flood afar the current. And favours no fewer they furnished him soothly, excellent folk gems, than others had given him, who when first he was born outward did send him, lone on the main, the merest of infants, and a gold-fashioned standard they stretched under heaven. High o'er his head let the holm currents bear him, seaward consigned him, sad was their spirit, their mood very mournful. Men are not able soothly to tell us, they in the halls who reside, heroes under heaven, to what haven he hied. Act 2, Skald's Successors, Hrothgar's Great Mead Hall. In the boroughs then Beowulf, bairn of the Scyldings, beloved land prince, for long-lasting season, was famed mid the folk. His father departed, the prince from his dwelling, till afterwards sprang great-minded Healfdene. The Danes in his lifetime he graciously governed, grim-mooded, aged. 4 bairns of his body born in succession, woke in the world, war troopers leader Hrothgar, and Helga the Good. Heard I that Elgin was Ongetho's consort, the well-beloved bedmate of the war-scoffing leader. Then glory in battle to Hrothgar was given, waxing of war fame, that willingly kinsmen obeyed his bidding, till the boys grew to manhood. A numerous band. It burned in his spirit to urge his folk to found a great building, a mead hall, grander than men of the era had ever heard of, and in it to share with young and old of all the blessings the Lord had allowed him, save life's retainers. Then the work I find afar was assigned, too many races in Middle Earth's regions, to adorn the great folk hall. In due time it happened, early 'mong men, that 'twas finished entirely, the greatest of hall buildings. Herot he named it, who were wide-reaching, world-swaying, wielded 'mong earlmen. His promise he brake not, rings he lavished, treasure at banquet. Towered the hall up high and horn-crested, huge between antlers. It battled waves bidded, the blasting fire demon. Ere long then from the hottest hatred must sword wrath arise for a woman's husband and father. Then the mighty war spirit, endured for a season, bore it bitterly, he who bided in darkness. That light-hearted laughter loud in the building greeted him daily. There was dew-lit harp music, clear song of the singer. He said that was able to tell of old earthmen's beginnings, that Father Almighty earth had created the winsome wold that the water encircleth, set excusingly by the sun's and the moon's beams, to lavish their lustre on landfolk and races. And earth he embellished in all her regions with limbs and leaves. Life he bestowed to all on the kindreds that live under heaven. So blessed with abundance, brimming with joyance, the warriors abided, till a certain one 'gan to dog them with deeds of direfullest malice. A foe in the hall building, this horrible stranger, was Grendel entitled, the march-stepper famous, who dwelt in the moor-fens, the marsh and the fastness. The wan-mooted being abode for a season in the land of the giants, when the Lord and Creator had banned him and branded. For that bitter murder, the killing of Abel, all-ruling father, the kindred of Cain, crushed with his vengeance. In the feud he rejoiced not, but far away drove him, from kindred and kind, the crime to atone for, meter for justice. Thence ill-favored creatures, elves and giants, monsters of ocean, came into being, and the giants that long time grappled with God, he gave them requital. Part 3, Grendel the Murderer, or Act 3. When the sun was sunken, he set out to visit the lofty hall building, how the Ring-Danes had used it for beds and benches when the banquet was over. Then he found there, reposing many a noble asleep after supper, Sorrow the heroes, Misery knew not. The monster of evil, greedy and cruel, tarried but little, fell and frantic, and forced from their slumbers. 30 of Thanemen, thence he departed, leaping and laughing, to his lair to return to, with surfeit of slaughter sallying homeward. In the dusk of the dwelling, as the day was just breaking, was Grendel's prowess revealed to the warriors. Then, his meal-taking finished, a moan was uplifted, mourning cry mighty. The man-ruler famous, the long-worthy atheling, sat very woeful, suffered great sorrow, sighed for his liegemen. When they had seen the track of the hateful pursuer, the spirit accursed, too crushing that sorrow, too loathsome and lasting. Not longer he tarried, but one night, after continued his slaughter, shameless and shocking, shrinking but little from malice and murder, they mastered him fully. He was easy to find then, who otherwhere looked for, a pleasanter place of repose in the lodges, a bed in the borrowers. Then was brought to his notice, told him truly by token apparent, the hall's thane hatred. He held himself after further and faster, who did the foeman did battle. So ruled he, and strongly strove against justice, lone against all men, till empty uptowered the choicest of houses. Long was the season, 12 winters of time, tortured, suffered the friend of the Skadelings. Every affliction, endless agony, hence it after, became certainly known to the children of men, sadly in measures, that long against Hrothgar Grendel struggled. His grudges he cherished, murderous malice, many a winter, strife unremitting, and peacefully wished he lift woe to lift from no liegeman at all, of the men of the Dane folk, for money to settle. No counsellor needed to count for a moment on handsome amends at the end of the hands of the murderer. The monster of evil fiercely did harass the ill-planning death-shade, both elder and younger, trapping and tricking them. He trode every night then the mist-covered moor-fens. Men do not know where witches and wizards wander and ramble. So the foe of mankind, many of evils, grievous injuries often accomplished, horrible hermit, Herot he frequented, gem-bedecked palace, when nightshades had fallen, since God did oppose him, not the throne could he touch. The light-flashing jewel, love of him knew not. 'Twas a fearful affliction to the friend of the Scyldings, soul-crushing sorrow. Not seldom in private sat the king in his council. Conference held they, what braves should determine ghast terrors unlooked for. At the shrines of their idols often they promised gifts and offerings, earnestly prayed they the devil from hell would help them to lighten their people's oppression. Such practice they used then, hope of the heathen, hell they remembered in innermost spirit, God they knew not, judge of their actions. All-wielding ruler, no praise could they give the guardian of heaven, the wielder of glory. Woe will be his, who through furious hatred of his spirit shall drive to the clutch of the fire. No comfort shall look for, wax no wiser. Well for the man who, living his life days, his Lord may face, and find defense in his Father's embrace.